Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. We are still basking in the glow of another Victory Monday, the third straight for the Denver Broncos. And I'm thrilled to welcome in my co-host for this weekend, NFL insider, man with a million jobs and an impressive amount of volume in his hair.
Guys,
James
we got a lot
Palmer.
today. We got a lot. You and I were just joking. I was like, man, I need a cut. I need to go see Kirk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, James, as always, it's a pleasure to have you in like we have every week so far this season. And it's been a little bit of a busy news today. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on some of the breaking news from this morning. The Jets have moved on from Robert Salah.
Yeah. Wild move. I mean, literally nobody, you usually say like, public, nobody saw this coming. Literally nobody saw this coming. This is out of nowhere. From my understanding, Robert Salah in his office this morning, Woody Johnson comes in, tells him you're gone. And that was it. Like that was essentially how it went down. Really no warning. I mean, the only thing you can think of is for some reason this happens to coaches coming back from London. Usually it doesn't go down the way this went down, where it's now Tuesday and you're working on the week and you're about to play a game that if you win on Monday night, you're in first place in the division. And no, this place probably has more pressure on it than any other building in football this year. It's clear.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a player that probably had more pressure on them than Aaron Rodgers this season in the entire NFL, because the window's now, and the window is probably, in all honesty, closed at the end of this season. It really is, because now that you made this move 5 games into the season, Aaron has another year left after this. But asking around the league, Rich, is kind of like, this is it. I mean, you're going to keep him for another year with a brand new coaching staff coming in. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers for a year and then have to regroup again.
Exactly.
And start over. What do you do in terms of your offensive philosophy? What do you do in terms of your offensive personnel? Like, there's a lot. So the buzz around the league is this whole thing gets blown up at the end of the season.
It would make sense.
See.
I mean, I think we have a front end expectation with as fans and as observers of like, they're going to bring in this quarterback, they're going to bring in this coach, and it's just going to microwave together, and we're going to do it. But there's so much that goes on in an NFL building to get ready for a season, to adapt and identify your philosophies on the offensive and defensive side of the ball and all of that. And it's not easy to just plug and play someone. I mean, it happens, and I think that's what fuels these expectations. But yeah, it'll be crazy to see what happens. And, there's a small part of me that thinks it would have been fun if the Broncos and the Jets had not already played yet. And we could have maybe, got to experience the other side of it. But they
didn't get the job either, though. That would have been the other part.
Yeah, that would have been cinema, and the NFL's usually good about aligning those moments for us, but we didn't get it in this instance.
I didn't see this one coming.
The Broncos, on the other hand, are winners of 3 in a row. And after kind of a tough start with 2 games that I think a lot of people, myself included, felt like they should win or were pretty winnable, losing both of those, and they've now rattled off 3 more improbable victories. And the latest one coming, which it would have actually been horrible if they'd ruined this, because the throwback weekend was amazing. The jerseys, which I just want to, for myself as well as everybody else, I just want to throw up one more picture of these beautiful uniforms that.
Look at those butts.
Exactly.
Oh, the uniforms. Yeah,
that too. Yeah. I am one of those people, and I know there's logical reasons on both sides of the ball. Tell me why they shouldn't just go back to wearing these all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's rules. There's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to an equipment manager or head of equipment in this league, they'll tell you. I mean, if you want to, and I might get these dates wrong, but this is a little like, inside baseball. If you want to do a full uniform change, you need to put that into the league like years in advance, because there's a number of jerseys that need to be sold. There's paperwork. Obviously, you're right. A lot of that. The Broncos, the changes that they made as a whole this year, they were within the scheme that allowed them to do it
Mhm.
in the time frame that they
Yeah.
did.
They wiggled, they didn't fully overhaul.
Exactly. When you do a full overhaul, man, it's a lot for the league to allow you to do that, and a lot of time that has to happen.
Mhm.
But hell, there's a couple, these throwbacks. I'm on the fence about, like, I would love to see these every week, but does that kind of take away how special they are when you see them?
We're getting some comments in here that said they wouldn't be as special if we wore them all the time.
Great minds think alike. There's a couple of them in the league that I love. I mean, these are one of them. I think the Kelly Green of the Philadelphia Eagles are reminds you of like Reggie White, Randall Cunningham type of. I love the creamsicle.
The Bucks, yeah. That one you could see we get a little bit of that one's so aggressively different that I think it would be a little jarring. And it's
jarring's a good word.
Far be it from me as a millennial who usually like you push the old things aside and things are better and newer and all that stuff. I don't think it would be less special. I think now they never won a championship in those uniforms, and they've won 3 in the newer iterations. But I don't know, man. Maybe make that the excuse. We want to win one in these uniforms that are so good, and they never got to reach the pinnacle. But I know that there's rules, and you make more money by splitting them up, and it makes for cool weekends like we just had.
Cool. It was a cool game to be at.
In addition to, because it was throwback from top to bottom. You had the field paint was different. The music in the stadium was 70s inspired. The uniforms, they brought back all the alumni and honored all of them justifiably so. And in a weird way, it felt like a throwback performance from the Broncos. I mean, like a dominant defensive performance where they ran the ball reasonably well, at least compared to the first month of games for them so far. And they won in blowout fashion. And that's not something we've seen from the Broncos a lot post Super Bowl 50. And so that was kind of fun too. And I feel like we've had conversations so far this year about the Broncos finally seeming like they're establishing some form of identity as a team. The offense is still coming along. But the defense, and all credit to Vance Joseph for this turnaround that he's been able to do year to year, and just especially from the last time he was in town here, as head coach, the defense is playing really good football. And I think that they're kind of forming that we're going to try to run the ball on offense, take pressure off of Bo, and just count on playing stout defense, which feels kind of old school. I feel like Mark Schlereth would strongly identify with the kind of football that they're playing right now. What have you seen in terms of the Broncos as a whole and kind of the identity they seem to be forming?
Yeah, I think this identity started last year. I really do. If you talk to people in the building last year or in the second half of the season, it was, and you need your guys to buy into this. We're gonna win some ugly games, and we're gonna muddy it up, and we're gonna win that way. That's the way the Steelers play. There's certain teams that play that way. And there's certain teams that are better than others at getting their team to buy into that thinking. That I think that school of thought started last year. Now, part of that was that's what they thought they had to do with the way Sean thought of Russell Wilson and the way this offense was playing with Russ. So that was the philosophy really last year. I don't think maybe they thought entirely we are going to bleed that identity directly into this season, because we got a 12th overall pick at quarterback. We're going to change some things in the way this offense moves because of that pick at quarterback. But I think they're seeing now, like, it's not a bad identity to have, because you have a quarterback in place that's growing. He's getting better each week. Let's be honest. Actually, all 3 of these quarterbacks are getting better each and every week. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels apparently has been just
the kids are all right
the whole time. But Caleb has grown each week, and we're doing okay. But if Bo's going to continue to not take sacks, not turn the ball over, and this defense continues to play this way, and the run game keeps kind of building, this might be your identity, that you're going to win some ugly games. And I'll give them this. They're well coached in a sense that, say what you will about Sean and the way that this has gone, and everybody thinks maybe Bo should be further along than he is already, and that the offense is stagnant and it's dated. I've heard all these things from other coaches around the league. It's too dink and dunk. They're good enough coaching staff that they're not going to hurt themselves late in games. They've been tremendous in special teams. This defense has been great. This is a recipe to win ugly games. And this might be something that they're going to maybe embrace as a team. I wouldn't be opposed to it, in all honesty, with some of the quarterbacks you have to face in the AFC.
When I think of that concept of winning ugly games and it's not flashy, but it seems to work. The Pittsburgh Steelers are immediately a team that comes to mind that just, especially in the AFC North, they just seem to win these grimy 13-10 or, 16-11 games. And it's like, you watch it and it's like, it might be painful to watch at times, but you look up at the standings midway through the season and they're 6-2, or whatever it is. And they're competitive.
Always double-digit wins. Always.
Yeah.
Always.
And it hasn't necessarily translated to a lot of postseason success, and at least in the case of the Steelers. But another team that I think you don't think of it right away because they have such star power. But I think the Kansas City Chiefs win a lot of close, ugly games, and they don't blow teams out like they did in the first handful of years. And so I look at it, and it's
actually a really good comp, right? Honestly. That's the way, and I think that's the way they know they're going to have to play this season. I mean, Kareem Hunt go out and run the football the way he did last night. That defense is outstanding. Pat doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, even though this is the worst start of his career, in all honesty, statistically. But they do win close games. Now, that is a little bit different because they've been in so many and they almost just know they're going to win games. They just know they're going to win close games. A little bit different. Now, it's always harder when you got a big dollar sign next to your quarterback to play this way. But you need the quarterback and the team to buy into. Another one I would throw in there is the Lions. I know they have all the skill in the world. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a great wide receiver. Jameson Williams is coming along. Sam Laporta. But look at the way they play games. I mean, they physically wear you out. That's the way they play it. I mean, I was talking about this, so I had to throw this up about it because it's just bonkers. Every team that has played the Lions this year has lost the next week. And I mean, borderline got embarrassed the next week.
Wow.
And it's because, as I asked around, this used to happen. Let me see. Yeah, this used to happen with the Niners back in the day. They just wear you out physically. Look at this. The Rams played them opening week. They lost to the Cards 41-10 the next week. The Bucs beat the Lions. They lost to the Broncos the next week, 26-7. The Bucs were not on top of their game that game against
no
at all.
And they were on top of the world prior to
right after playing the Lions, right? And then the Cardinals, they lose to the Lions. What happens to the Commanders the next week? They lose to them 42-14. The Seahawks play the Lions. Gave them a good game. Gino played great, if you remember. They lost to the Giants last week, 29-20. And Jared Goff will embrace this. I mean, that game he played, a perfect game. He threw 18 passes. And so some teams do embrace it. Your quarterback has to buy in. Denver could be built to do this. Now, you want to make sure that you start to, grow off of it. You can't. Sometimes it's not sustainable. You mentioned Pittsburgh, where they can get to, but they're not.
Yeah. Next level.
Quarterback usually takes you there. But I mean, no slight to any of these skill guys in Denver, but is this the Eagles?
No, it's not.
Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley,
right?
No,
no.
So you do have to find a variety of ways to win. I think they've gotten a little bit more aggressive downfield. But if the defense keeps playing this way, and you're coached the way you're coached to play mistake-free football, and that's one thing that I think Bo's good at. Maybe this is how you win games. And I think in Denver right now, the way the last decade's gone, I'll take wins any way you can get them.
So as someone who's lived here and has experienced and observed a lot of this last decade or so firsthand, with what you've seen so far through 5 weeks of this season, do you believe in your gut that this is a sustainable formula for the Broncos this season to win games, factoring in their schedule, all of that?
Yeah, that part's hard. I would say as long as the quarterback's growth continues with it.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you don't want to play this style of play and you stunt your quarterback's growth by any means. And I don't think Sean will do that. I think you got to keep expanding in the way that, what you can put on his plate and what he's doing and what's slowing down for him. And then you can take some more shots and you can do some stuff. I think this offense needs to keep evolving while you do it. But I think you have to know, the defense most likely is going to go out and play the way they've played. I think. I mean, you lose a linchpin like Alex Singleton in the middle, or Singletary if you're watching the broadcast.
Yeah, I don't know what that happens. I mean, Okue Bunam, and it was.
Alex is like a leading tackler in this league.
Yeah. He doesn't have a tough name. It's exactly the way it sounds.
It's right there for you.
Yeah.
And they haven't missed a beat. And there's a lot of communication that has to go on in this defense. So, it's to an extent sustainable. I do think the defense has to go along with it, because a perfect example is Buffalo. Like after 3 weeks, the league has figured out Buffalo's offense.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the outside. All our talent's in the middle of the field. Look at what the Texans did. It was like, we don't even care about the outside receivers.
Yeah.
We know you want to give it to your tight ends, your running back, and even if he's healthy, Shakir, and it's all between the hashes. It's all right here.
Yeah. And it's got to be maddening knowing you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, who's an
All-world
absolute
player.
unicorn, all-world player, and even he's not enough.
Exactly. So I don't think their offense is sustainable to play that way.
Yeah.
I don't think the Broncos offense is sustainable to win games, but the Broncos defense is clear-cut, far and away better than Buffalo's defense. So that helps you in a sense, but you're going to have to find ways to be more explosive. I'm not like letting the offense off the hook by saying you can win games this way. I mean, let's make that clear. But you can't be like, what were they averaging? 15 points a game coming into this game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't be doing that as an offense. But I'm just saying, like, if you got to muddy some games up, I think they have the ability to do that.
They're currently sitting in second place of the division at 3-2. And if the playoffs started in October, which they famously don't, they would be a 5 seed, I believe. 5 or 6. Yeah. And the Charge with an opportunity to extend both of those, because the team right beneath them in the division and in the AFC standings is the Chargers, who they have coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
So there's chatter and there's buzz after 3 wins in a row, as there would be with a lot of teams around the league, that the ceiling and therefore expectation for the Broncos in 2024 should be elevated, even if it's slightly, based on what they've done the last 3 games. So I think their preseason over under was like 5.5, and then it's jumped up to like just right around that 7, 8, maybe 9 win range. And now I hear a lot of people saying, I think 10-7 should be the expectation for this team. To those people, you would say what?
I mean, I'm pulling up the schedule now. I mean,
you got the Chargers coming
the way
up.
they are right now, I think they can beat the Chargers. I think they can. As long as you limit Carr and the explosive plays, I think they can beat the Saints.
Yeah.
They should beat the Panthers. I don't think they beat the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Falcons. I don't know if you sweep the Raiders, but they might be in such disarray. I don't know.
Right.
The Browns are entirely, I mean, when that came out preseason, 5.5, I don't think you thought the Cleveland Browns would be what we're seeing right now.
We may be looking at a Jameis Winston Cleveland Browns team by that point.
I might go DTR, honestly.
Yeah.
I think you've been that Browns game. Colts is a toss-up, honestly. I think Shane's just a really good coach. Say you split with the Chargers. I think they'll be rolling by the end of the year.
I think they're going to be rolling every week.
Joe Burrow's going to put up 395 and 5 tutties like he did last week. He's not going to lose most of those. And then you got the Chiefs, who, I mean, maybe the Chiefs don't care by then, but I think they're going to be in a dogfight through the rest of the season. Yeah, 10 wins is a lot.
It is.
That's a lot. But I do think there's something brewing here. A little bit. I really do. Like, I talk to a lot of these players, just kind of like, because I've known a couple of them for a really long time, and just they are curious about what's going on around the league, Rich, right? So like we chat and they're like, hey, what's happening here? I'm telling you. And I always hear like quietly, like, we got something special going on here, man. Like we got something special going on. They believe, they really do. And confidence is a really, really big thing in this league. I think maybe people don't understand how valuable that is for players to play with confidence in this league. And they have a little bit of it right now. So we'll see. I just think part of the formula of why the win total was so low is you're starting a rookie quarterback right out of the gate. And you have a defense that, I'll be entirely honest. How many people in Denver, not even nationally, in Denver can name 4 players on the defense?
It's not as many as you think.
I don't think it is.
Yeah. It's not.
I don't think it is. But, I think that allows the national perspective as well. When I made that like kind of local assumption, that allows the national perspective to say, well, this defense isn't very good. But like, I was talking to another defense coordinator in the league this week who was like, they got grown ass men on that defensive line. Like, he was joking. He's like, dude, that is old man strength. Like Zach Allen, Jonathan Franklin Myers, DJ Jones. And like, he's like Malcolm Roach. He's like, these are grown ass men, like that can throw people around, and can control the line of scrimmage. Like, he was like, that's so underrated. in a lot of people's minds that cover football. And he's like, it shouldn't be.
It's funny that you mentioned when we were talking about comps earlier that you brought up the Detroit Lions, because I went to Michigan State. I spent 4 years out in Michigan, and during that time, I know during that time, the Lions became kind of, I developed like a soft spot for them. One, because I loved watching Matthew Stafford, who was the quarterback back then. And I just kind of liked they were really bad always, but they were gritty and they like the fan base just loved them. And they embodied the same mentality for a long time as the city of Detroit, which is kind of us against the world and old school muscle. And the way that the Broncos defense, who I agree with you, we've established, just does not, outside of Patrick Surtain, now that Justin Simmons is gone and, you've jettisoned some other players, it doesn't have a lot of name value from a national perspective, and there's not a lot of star power and sizzle there.
Yeah.
But they kind of have this, like, us against the world kind of vibe to them, and they're going to go out there and they band together and they're going to ball. And thus far, they've balled. And I kind of like that. I resonate with that. And as it's been sustainable through 5 weeks, I think they have a defense that I think they have a 5-0 defense, and the offense has kind of taken some time to kind of sputter together, and we'll see how it pans out. But
I'll go a step further with this, Rich. Honestly, are they 3-2, and their 2 losses were 1-score games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they 3-2 without Pat Surtain?
I don't think so. I think that pick 6 against the Raiders this past week was the biggest play of the season, and it completely changed the momentum of that game. I did a little when I was watching the game, because they were about to go down 17-3 at one point.
Yeah,
and
you're averaging 15 going in. It's not a good recipe. That was first half.
The end of the first quarter ended. They were down 10-0, and I just, based on the way that the offense has looked so far this season, and historically speaking, they have not had an offense, regardless of who is under center, that's good at coming back from deficits during games. So I gave myself a little research project during the game, and I went and looked up how many times the Broncos have come back post-COVID, so 2020 season forward, how many times the Broncos have come back from a deficit of any kind after the first quarter, 3-0, 7-0, 17-0, whatever.
Okay.
Prior to this past Sunday, they were 4-27 in games where they were losing after the first quarter. And so the fact that they were able to do that, albeit with some help from the defense, and that really was the catalyst that pushed it forward. And it didn't hurt that Gardner Minshew just made some awful decisions to kind of help them. But sometimes that's life. You need a little bump draft. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You just need a little push. And that's where they got it. So it was encouraging to me to see not only that they were able to overcome that, but I felt like Bo Nix came out of his shell in other ways. I think, you had the confrontation with Sean Payton on the sideline, kind of like a crime of passion, barking at each other a little bit, which you didn't see with Russ. I mean, we saw last year, famously, Sean Payton undressing Russell Wilson on the sideline, and he's kind of like staring like a little kid that knows he's in trouble, but he's just like pretending it's not happening. Yeah. And this was the opposite. And it actually felt like Bo Nix was the aggressor in that, kind of coming at Sean a little bit. And it was nice to see some fire and some passion there. And especially after I think statistically, Bo Nix had one of the worst games for a quarterback in NFL history against the Jets. Like, it was brutally bad, even though they won. And so I thought that was nice too. And so in the same kind of vein of how I asked you about whether or not you think the Broncos formula for winning is sustainable, I guess I'll turn around and ask you, with the progression that we've only been able to see in a small sample size through 5 weeks, do you believe, as I feel like is becoming a tagline here in Broncos country, do you believe that Bo Nix is on an upward trajectory and that you will continue to see some sustainable growth week to week as we progress through the season?
I mean, he better be.
Yeah.
Because it started terrible. I mean, let's be entirely honest.
Yeah.
I know it's the first couple of weeks of a guy's NFL career, and we've seen guys come out of the gates. So it better be. I mean, he didn't throw a touchdown pass through the first 3 games.
I think it's the first time in Broncos history that they haven't had a touchdown pass through the first 3 weeks of a season.
It was. It totally was. And there's like 2 other first-round picks ever that have gone the first 3 games without throwing a touchdown pass. And have 4 picks. I think it was Terry Bradshaw and Alex
Scrub.
Smith. Seriously. That's his company through the first 3.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's
has to
interesting
be
you say
better.
that, because if you told me 7-8 years from now that Bo Nix is Alex Smith, sign me up for whatever growing pains we need up to that point, because Alex Smith would have probably had a handful of really more productive years if Patrick Mahomes was never born.
That was the best season of his career.
Yeah.
That year that Pat was sitting and he played, he was mentoring Pat and had the best
Mhm.
season statistically of his career. So yeah, I think the growth is there. The growth is coming. I think, I didn't think Bo's head was ever really spinning like some
Mhm.
guys do in this league, but I do think it's slowed down for him. I do
Mhm.
think you're seeing a little bit less of the fadeaways, which,
Mhm.
come to the end of your drop and then come back forward and step in and go through your progressions. Like, we're seeing more of that.
Mhm.
We're seeing, he wasn't getting much help from the run game by any stretch.
Mhm.
Can they stretch the football a little bit? They need to allow this short passing game to kind of be what they want it to be. Will they continue to learn, who Bo is? Big time. And I think that's the biggest thing. I
Mhm.
mean, this is on Bo, but it's also on, and it's an interesting like phrase that Sean's been using this entire season is, we got to paint the perfect picture for Bo.
Yep.
And I think I get what he's saying, but also this is on like, Sean and the offensive staff to sit there and Sean Payton and them say, okay, well, like, look, like, we don't really use RPOs. We didn't use them with, Drew Brees.
Yeah.
But this is something we can continue to build off of.
Mhm.
And it makes life easy. I mean, it was extremely effective. Apples and oranges, but for like Jalen Hurts, the year he took him to the Super Bowl, like it's sometimes the game is easier if you can have that RPO just hold one player and you're playing
Yep.
against 10 guys. And so like there's different ways that they're learning for him to grow. There's different parts that are on him. There's different parts that are on the offense and on the, the play caller. But yeah, I think Javonte Williams starting to find his footing helps out Bo tremendously. Had a long conversation with him after the game. Like, there's a lot of parts that come into, and I don't think fans get this. Like, catastrophic knee injury is what I was told by people in the building.
Yeah.
And yes, he was back to moving like his old self in training camp. And everybody's like, the burst is back, all that stuff. He joked to me, it's like, camp is not football. Like, nobody's going after my knees.
Right.
Nobody's trying to get me from the side while I'm coming through. Like, you got to mentally get over a couple of those little things going like, it's going to be fine. I'm going to be able to get through the hole. And he seems to be heading back to the player that they'd like him to be. All these things help out, Bo.
As someone who tore their ACL, MCL, meniscus playing sports, I don't wish that recovery or injury on anybody. And I can't imagine it was hard enough for me just to get back to doing the average recreational activities that I did afterwards, let alone the high performance level of athletics that these guys have to do. And I still wince every time I see a running back get taken out at the ankles or at the knee, or, take a hard hit into the sideline. As far as Bo, I agree. I think that he has not progressed as quickly as anyone, in the fan base would have liked. But the Broncos have avoided taking this pill for so long of drafting a young quarterback and taking their medicine and really just committing to building a new foundation, that I think that there has to be an accepted level of patience with that. And I think these 3 games, albeit one of the wins was statistically awful and the other 2 haven't been statistically great, but they've been better and they've found ways to make it work and work around it, I think is positive. I do think, in terms of painting the perfect picture, I don't really ever want to see a game where Javonte Williams is the team's leading receiver. I don't think that
we've seen games where Bo's the leading rusher already.
Yeah, there you go. There's the 2 things I don't want to see. If Bo was Lamar Jackson, if he was Josh Allen, and because the Bills and the Ravens up until now, I mean, they have Derrick Henry now, but the Bills and the Ravens historically have never had really consistent, solid core production from the running back position, and I think that allows those super athletic quarterbacks to kind of take those reins. I'm good if Bo Nix is never the leading rusher in a game, or Javonte Williams is never the leading receiver. So those are things I think they still have to work out the kinks on. But I am trying to be as cautiously optimistic as I can, because let's face it, we are living in an NFL world right now where Geno Smith through 5 weeks of the season is the leading passer in football. And guys like
great weapons, man.
Yeah.
And great running back.
Yeah. And guys like Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr are having career renaissances, being on their third, second, third, whatever teams. Sam Darnold, yeah. So I don't think that, and those guys were all much more highly touted than Bo coming out of college, and they were drafted higher, except for Geno. And they're figuring out ways to make it work. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel on that, and I'm trying to stay cautiously optimistic. But I will say something that I didn't see coming was, and I want to make sure that we all give him as much as the flowers as he deserves, is the emergence of Riley Moss. And it's hard enough to have one stand down, lockdown corner in the NFL, like the Broncos have found in Pat Surtain, who may be the best in the sport and maybe has been for a couple of years now. But I think that it's so easy for a lot of that talent to be mitigated if you just don't have anything else of substance on the other side, because it's, oh, hey, yeah, we're not going to throw toward Pat Surtain because we're just going to go this way. I mean, we've seen it here in Broncos country with like Isang Bassi and, guys getting, what was the name of the player who got like 5 pass interference penalties in a game because they just kept picking on him. Maybe it was Isang Bassi. I don't remember, but the Broncos have just struggled maybe it was Isaac Yadams, just struggled to find that other thing. And Riley Moss playing the way that he's played, and not just getting praise from locals here in Broncos country. I mean, former players, national outlets, the Pro Football Focus, the media, the analytic people. He's just playing great ball, and I think it's helped establish some of this identity. And we were having a little bit of this debate earlier in some aspects of the chicken and the egg, whether it does if you have 2 standout corners, does that help the pass rush get to a quarterback more so than a quick pass rush taking pressure off of a secondary and corners to be able to relax, and not have to hold coverages for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. And whatever the formula is, wherever it shakes out, it seems like it's working out. Where does the duo of Pat Surtain and Riley Moss to you rank in terms of cornerback duos around the league?
I mean, I don't want to piss on your parade.
Yeah.
He's not even the second best corner on the team.
And maybe not.
He's not. Jaquan McMillan's the second best corner on the team.
Stud.
I think Riley Moss has played well.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a lockdown corner in this league.
No.
I mean, you said that. But he's not.
I said that about Surtain.
You said, do they have 2 lockdown corners?
Fair enough.
Team? No, but I'm just messing around. Like, listen,
You're checking me 5 seconds after I said it.
Yeah. Fact checking's a big deal this time of year. He has come along really, really well. And you need to do a couple of things when you're going to get the number of targets that Riley Moss is going to get. You need to be tough. You need a short memory. You need to be extremely confident, and you're going to need to make a play because you're going to get balls your way. And he's done that. He's got a pick. He's got a forced fumble. He's got a fumble recovery. Like, he's made plays. And I remember having that conversation with Aqib Talib, like, before the season. Like, Lieb and I were talking, and he was like, this is Bradley Roby. Like, Riley Moss is Bradley Roby. Not different players, right? Bradley was a first-round pick. But, like, in terms of nobody was going to throw at Chris, he said. He's like, nobody's going to throw at me. We're going to get, like, 3-4 targets a game. And then Bradley's going to get 10.
Yeah.
Like, but can Robe make a play?
Yeah.
Can he make a play when we need a play?
Yeah. Can he win 6 or 7 of those battles?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what the situation Riley's in. And I mean, he is tough. He is long. He is physical. He's a great athlete. He is coming along really, really, really well. And you're right. I think he's a big part of why this defense is playing the way they're playing. Because you need a lot of moving pieces when you're going to have a player shadow. Not a lot of corners shadow in this league anymore. Like, it just doesn't happen. This was established, talking to people in the building, like, this was established in OTAs. Like, we are going to have Pat shadow more. We're going to keep it going. And you need the other 10 to communicate really, really well to allow that to happen, especially the other corner, the other safeties, obviously, and then J-Mac as well. So they've all done a really good job allowing Pat to take away. And I started this conversation earlier. Like, it's not just the stats. He might be, in my mind, the defensive player of the year so far in the league. Aiden Hutchinson's been outstanding as well.
He's unbelievable.
But I would say this, like, it's going to be hard for Pat to win those awards because a lot of what he does doesn't happen in a stat sheet.
Mhm.
You just got to look on the other side and go, Mike Evans had 1 catch, like Garrett
Yeah.
Wilson had 1 catch, like while he was covering him, DK Metcalf, like it's going to be hard for him to do that, but that affects the entire defense. And that allows Riley to have some opportunities because they're going to avoid him and they're going to avoid Pat. And so I think he's playing really well. And he came in, and a lot of places around the league wanted him to be a safety. Honestly, I'll just say it. Some teams really thought he was a safety just because he's white. No lie.
Yeah.
That was literally a thing around the league, which is
Oh,
crazy to me. So Denver from the jump wanted him to be a corner. And I think he liked that. And I think getting picked by a team, I mean, when he took his visit, they told him, like, you're a corner in our eyes. I think he still remembers that. Like, they think I'm a corner. I am a corner. He's a confident dude. They try to make him a safety in college. And he was like, no, I'm a corner. So I'm surprised. I might ask him that this week if I get into the locker room. Like, how much of Denver during your visit telling you that they think you're a corner when a lot of your visits they want to make you a safety do for your confidence with this team? Kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, there's no shortage of manufactured motivation in professional sports and things like that. And kudos to him. He had a belief, he had a vision, and he bet on himself, and he has so far, reaped some benefits from that. And I certainly don't want to. I didn't want to throw any shade at Jaquan McMillan, but
I get it. Like, different spot, right, Rich? Like, and he plays at the line. He plays right off of the linebacker or the D end. Like, he does a lot of really great things. He's been a great open field tackler. Different spot, but I had to defend guys like Chris Harris that are saying, like, I'm a corner too, even though I play in the slot, and becoming just more and more important to this league.
And it's not to say that it can happen, but it wasn't Jaquan McMillan that Pat Surtain was photoshopping their face onto a movie poster.
Yeah,
love it. That I love it, man.
What do you think about this though? Because this is one of my favorite movies, and like Pat doesn't talk like Sidney.
Yeah, no, it's
Pat's not Wesley Snipes.
I think it works great as like a in the moment kind of capture the vibe.
Personality wise, Pat
Photoshop,
is not Wesley Snipes.
But yes, no, I would never. Sidney, Wesley Snipes would never play Pat Surtain in a movie. That is just, it just doesn't quite fit.
I've met Wesley Snipes once. I got to think. Pat's also, I think, like a foot taller than Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, it is. That is another crazy thing as a 5'9" man that never ceases to amaze me is when I stand next to, because when you're watching certain guys on TV, it happens drastically so in the NBA because the shortest guys in the NBA are 5 inches taller than you, almost no matter what your height is. But when I stand next to guys like Pat Surtain or Cortland Sutton, and I just like it hits me all over again when you're that close in person, just how big these guys. I mean, Cortland Sutton is a grown ass man, and standing next to Pat Surtain, even though he's a cornerback and he doesn't look necessarily just
corners aren't usually that big.
But he's really big. And so, I love it. I couldn't be happier for Riley. I couldn't be happier for VJ and the way the defense is rolling. And I think they got a good shot. At winning 4 in a row here. And I saw somebody commented earlier, when was the last time the Broncos won 4 games in a row? And it's been a minute. Well, they won 5 games in a row last year, actually, didn't they?
Yeah, they went on that streak because they were like turning the ball over 3 times a game, gangbusters.
Yeah,
it was.
So it took an otherworldly turnover streak to get that going. So we'll see if they can do it again. We'll start with 4. We'll see where it goes. Well, James, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, hanging out with you as always.
For sure.
Can't wait to catch up again soon, man.
Yeah, let's what are we supposed to say, like, hey, when's Rachel going to be back, or are we all?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we've been kind of joking every now and then. We've been popping in with intros like, hey, sitting in for Rachel Vigil. She's in Switzerland right now, or she's in, because we don't actually know. I think she's on
I think she's in Switzerland.
I think I saw something on social media. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think she's doing like a European tour. Nice. Honeymoon, which, all more power to her. I'd love to switch places with her right now, actually. So
if she I don't know her husband, but I'll switch places with her. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, anyway, so she'll be,
everybody's cool.
She'll be back at some point, and we'll catch up with her then. But you and I will catch up before then. So thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, man. Take it easy, everybody.
Take it easy, everybody. Get back to work.